Hey, what is going on, IK fam? BN, we are back again today for another dope sauce Infinity Kingdom video. I'm pretty excited because this is something that is always near and dear to my heart, which is talking about any kind of aspects and levels of structuring, of managing. Today we're going to focus on alliance ranks and how you can go about giving you some ideas of structuring your different rankings from R1 through R6 and what the different impacts are for your players and how it can at times even provide incentive for your players. So let's start out and go over the 6 different ranks. So you have R1, which is where everyone starts out when they join, and then you can promote all the way up to R5 as an officer. R6 is the lead. Now, a simple breakdown that you can do, where again outside of your lead, because that's standard, you're only going to have one, you're going to have up to 6 officers. Now let's take a look at exactly what the roles can do. And again, you can hit this little info icon here where the R6 position is. So let's just start off with what are the biggest differences between a leader and an officer, right? So you can see here that pretty much for the most part, an officer can do a lot of what a leader can. The only thing they can't do is really a few things that are pertinent but not the most important for an officer, right? So creating a new alliance group chat or disbanding an alliance group chat, right? We've talked about this before as far as setting up alliance group chats. And I'll actually throw a link in the video description below for anyone that wants to watch that on how you can get ideas for the types of group chats that you can set up, which is extremely important. I absolutely love this feature, and I wish they did this in a few other Kingdom Builders that I played. You can edit alliance settings. So an example of this would be, let's say you want to turn your alliance to open or invite only. Right, so open would mean anyone can join your alliance at any time without an invite. Invite only, of course, the opposite there is that they would have to apply and then or be invited, right? And then you can accept them once they apply. Form or cancel a league. Unmark enemy alliance, and by league I'm imagining this is like based on the diplomacy board. So if you go over to diplomacy here, you can see it's like dissolve ally enemies that you have, right? This is something the lead can do. So now we'll scroll back. Transfer alliance leadership, right? So marking and unmarking enemy alliances. Right, leagues is like the diplomacy portion for allies, basically. Transfer alliance leadership, that's pretty standard. Only the lead can do that. And then, of course, dissolving, right, or deleting the alliance. So the only pertinent ones here, for the most part, is really just, I would say, the group chats and then editing settings from open to invite only. Those are like the 2 big ones that officers cannot do, right? But officers can do things like set your recommended tech, right? They can add and modify events in your calendar. They can do alliance markers. They can send regular mails and statistical mails. They can modify your notice and declaration board. Promote, demote members. It's pretty standard. Remove members. They can review. They can entry request or review entry requests. Right? They can invite people to alliances. And then once you're at like the R1, R2, R3 rank, right? It's pretty standard for what you can do. Now, I think over time it'd be cool if maybe they gave like an R4 or something. Maybe if it was just like one thing different. And again, I'll go into some of those reasons why as well. Now, with all of this being said, right, let me start out. This is what we're going to do. We're going to work top down. So, as an officer, I think it's important that you're putting those officers in positions that, 1, right, they're socially active. 2, they are hopefully contributing and helping out your players, right? They are, quote unquote, an extension of the leader of the alliance, right? They're able to put the, I don't know if I want to say ambiance, but if they're able to lead by example, right, when the leader is offline. In addition to that, right, they're hopefully assisting in other areas, right, when it comes to like setting recommended tech, maybe helping out with calendars. Maybe some of the officers even send mails out, right? They are, right, your captains, if you will, that hopefully should be there to be very consistent in the messaging and the information that they're putting out, so it lines up with what the leader is doing as well. And then, of course, right, you would probably go about maybe you decide you want to assign some additional roles to your officers. Maybe you have an officer that handles diplomacy. Maybe you have someone that handles recruitment. That kind of gets into a whole other area. But now let me talk about R4s. So this is really where it starts getting interesting on how you're going to do your tier rankings. So for an R4, right, and let me give you an example of how I do it for my alliance, and a similar format that we've used in our jump projects for alliances that we have within our families. So in R4 as an example, right, one way that you can do this rank is you can have R4s be based on cities. And let me give an example of exactly what I mean. So what we would do is before all of the cities have been captured let me see here. Yeah, before all the cities have been captured in the kingdom, or let's just say on the server, what we would do is we would have two different ranking systems that we would use. So we would have like a pre all cities have been captured system, and then we'd have a post all cities have been captured system. Now the pre system, we would go off of positions. So for example, an R4 would be able to position themselves closest to the city walls. And we would pretty much designate those. We'd put about maybe 12 to 14 people there, because you're usually sometimes factoring in some of the officers as well. Now, not all of your officers may be as strong as your R4s, right? Or the top 12 or top 14 strongest troop power players that you have in the server. But this is how we went about it. So we did this for a few reasons. One, because you're probably going to capture a couple cities at minimum, right, throughout your time in a server, depending on your rank, if not more. So by allowing for you to put your R4s in a position where they are the top 12 to 14 players in your alliance, it makes it easier, right? And you can do more if you want as well, so you have a little less margin of error in case not everyone can make it to sieges on time. Maybe you have 16, maybe you have 18 people you'll put as R4s, right, for your top 16 or top 18 strongest players. Now keep in mind, you want to go off troop power, because troop power is what is used to defeat the city garrisons. So we would then what we'd do is we would set up a marker here, and I would say, as an example, oh, hang on, I don't want to do that. That's sending some chords. So as an example, I would do something like this, right? And then I would say like ring 1, R4, right? Or I would say something like R4s, ring 1, right? Or I would say like first ring. And then same thing, right? And then we would do R3s, right? Second ring. Right, second ring or ring 2, right? And then you would make sure you have to count it out. So if I did 1 here, I'd want to go right, because every 2 squares is where a city would occupy. So I'd go 1. So I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So I would do 1, 3, 5. I do every 2 would be where I would place a marker, and that would define the ring area, right? So we would do R4s for first ring, R3s for the second ring, and then R2s and R1s for the third ring, right? Because that would be the outer ring. What this does is, because it's putting your strongest players closest to the city, it's also reducing and saving these players more AP when they have to attack the garrisons, right? Which is 1 square inside of the perimeter wall. So every little bit counts. This is one way you can go off of establishing your, like, a very simplistic rank structure that will carry you throughout the period of time until all the cities in your server have been captured. Now, an example of a very simple system that you can use after this is you can also then start going off of, for example, if you wanted to, you could go off overall alliance activity, you could go off of tech donations, alliance helps, and then you can base the positions for your ranks for ranks 4 through 1 off of this. Now, as an example, someone who is rank 1 in an alliance most likely would be someone that is new, or like if it's a silent player like you see some here, right? So I like to reserve rank 1 positions for new players that are just joining, and silent players or present status players, right? People that are just inactive, because it just helps you organize a little bit easier, right? So once you transition to like a post all cities captured structure, then you could do something like new players or people that maybe you have a waiting period. Maybe you say, okay, well, you have to be in the alliance for 2 or 3 days before we promote you, or you have to do 24 tech donations before we promote you, right? Whatever it may be, right? You can set it however you want, but I like there to be some kind of an entry waiting period in some form that alliances do, because I think it's important to wait for players to show that they're going to contribute to your alliance or before you potentially up their rank. Then you can up and kind of have your R2 rank be your standard rank, right? So these are people that have either kind of passed the entry test, you've vetted them for a couple days, up to a week, however long, right? You see that they're donating, they're consistent, and then eventually you give them an R2 rank, right? So the R2 rank means they're active, they're contributing to the alliance in one, if not more ways. Then you can go up for R3. You can do this again, you can do this a couple ways. You can do R3 based on people that are maybe a little more socially active, right? Maybe they are kind of your upper middle of the pack in power. Maybe they're a part of like your top 50, high active players, right? Maybe they're people that are like between 25 and 50 within your overall alliance ranking, tech donations, and alliance help. And then you can have R4s be, your top 15, 20, 25 strongest players, right? That'll be reserved for like R4. So that is something that can kind of rotate a little bit, right? Especially if you have some people that are close to the bubble position there. That's one way you can do it. You can also do it off of a combined point system, right? So you can allocate a certain number of points to alliance activity, donations, and help. An example of this, right, is you can do this based on here. So whatever their point system is, right, you give each of them a point based on their rank. So, and then you take the lowest amount of points and you combine them. So, for example, Zek would be 1. If I go to donations, I would find wherever Zek is. Oh, geez. I was going to try and use this as a solid example. Okay, so he's right. So then I would say, okay, he's at 33 points, 32 plus 1. So he's at 33 points, and then he's number 3. So he'd be at 36 points. So I'd put that on a spreadsheet. And what I would do is I would take the top 20 or top 25 lowest numbered players, right, and I would put them in an R4 position, right? You could do the same thing and put it in an R4. This is how you can do like a simplistic scale for how you're rating overall contributions from players. And again, you can use this for kind of that post all cities have been captured structure. Now again, these are just some ideas, some examples, right? There's a bunch of different ways that alliances can go about structuring their ranks. If anything, I hope that this at least provides some insight and some examples that whether you want to use this as a template, you want to modify it, maybe this just gave you some ideas, right? That is great and good enough for me to take away by just giving you some structuring tips from what I've done, from what other leaders have done that I know of, and hopefully it'll bring you some level of structure and assistance in maybe how you go about managing your alliance. But again, please let me know, right? Give me an example. Let me know in the comments down below what isn't it, how do you define each of your ranking positions from R1 through R4, even if you want to throw in how you go about picking your officers, right? If you're a leader of an alliance in any server, right? Let me know down in the comments below. I would love for other leads to share what they think or what does work for them, right? As a way to show that there's different ways of doing it, and maybe it can be a good kind of way to crowdsource where people can get some ideas from other leads as well. So that's it from me. As always, I hope you all enjoy the content, and until next time, we'll catch y'all later.